and thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to today's training, where you're going to be learning about tips and tricks of how to keep you and your students safe utilizing Microsoft Teams. My name is Ashley Taylor. I am a Customer Success Education Manager for Microsoft, and I've been involved with education and Microsoft in the community for over 6 years now. And I'm going to hand it off to my counterpart to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Margie. I am also a Customer Success Education Manager with Microsoft. I've been with Microsoft for 9 years, supporting education customers as well.
Well, we are so excited to have you. Today we're going to be getting to know a little bit more about Microsoft Teams and sharing some safety tips for both our administrators and our educators, and resources and next steps to help you guys learn more. Please, I would love you guys to light up that chat box. Let us know whether you're here from IT, if you're an administrator, if you're an educator. We'd love to hear where and what subject you teach.
Show some love for Teams in the chat.
Yes! Okay, so Microsoft Teams, what is it, right? It is that digital hub that is meant to help bring us together. Whether it's bringing us together for teaching and learning in online classrooms and collaborative workspaces, whether it's for professional development and built-in PLC teams, student and community building for kind of clubs and connecting extracurricular projects and teams and interest groups. We can utilize it for research and apprenticeships, as well as for faculty and staff collaboration. Really streamlining those workflows and connecting and collaborating with your department or across your entire district or organization. So, Teams, it can also be used as this hub to help connect the tools that you use most, like those Office apps, chat, and built-in learning, making it easier to seamlessly integrate Microsoft products as well as those third-party apps to meet your teaching and learning and collaboration needs, like GitHub for Education, Moodle, and Kahoot, as well as, like one of my favorite, Flipgrid. So let's start with some safety tips for administrators. Microsoft Teams at its core is about users being able to do things like go to meetings, live events, chat, make calls, and use apps. And setting the right Microsoft admin Teams policies is a critical step in creating that safe learning environment for our students within Teams. I know in this last year, we've all struggled with making sure that not only can we do this digital environment or hybrid environment, right, but we're doing it in as safe way as possible. As an admin, you can use these policies to control the Teams features that are available to your users in your educational institution. So, as a leader or IT administrator, you have a great toolkit of ways to create that safe environment for your students while using Teams. We're going to cover setting up safe identities, how to use policies and admin settings, and setting up those safe meetings and safe chats for your school. All right, so let's get into it. We strongly recommend that you create student identities in your tenant for distance learning. Requiring students and educators to sign into Teams before they join meetings is the safest meeting environment for remote learning. Doing so can help educators keep unauthorized users from gaining access to their online meetings. We also want to talk about managing policies utilizing that Teams Admin Center. Teams policies and admin settings allow you to control how Teams behaves in your environment and what level of access individual users have to certain features. To maintain that student safety, you can use administrative policies to control who can use private chat and private calling, who can schedule meetings, and what content types can be shared. All these policies can be managed from your Teams Admin Center. All right, now how to add policy definitions and assign them to users. To make it easier to manage policies in your organization, Teams offers several ways to assign policies to users. You can assign a policy directly to users, either individually or at a broader scale through a batch assignment or to a specific group the users are members of. You can also use policy packages to assign a preset collection of policies to users in your organization who have similar roles. The options that you choose depends on the number of policies that are managing and the number of users that you're assigning to. We also want to recommend that you use your global organization-wide default policy definition for students. Now, if you are K through 12 education, this is really going to help you ensure any new users get the most conservative policy set and reduces that risk that a student will receive of inappropriate levels of access. Now, if you're higher ed, this is still a good approach, but typically it's best to kind of broaden some of those strict policies to allow your students to interact with each other just a little bit more. All right, now let's talk about setting up those safe meetings and calls. When setting up policies for your users in the Teams Admin Center, there are a few cool meeting policies and settings that you can use to keep your students safe when using Teams. We can use this to prevent anonymous users, prevent students from scheduling meetings and live events on their own, or from meeting unattended. You can also disable meeting chat, limit the custom backgrounds that your students can create or use, and then disable private calling. It's also important to set up those safe chats and channels. There are also important conversation policies and settings to consider as you set up and manage your institution's Teams environment. You want to work on preventing those students from creating a team, allow educators to delete channel messages, enabling monitoring for chat and channel content, and then control GIFs, customized stickers, memes, all at either at a district level or with your educators being able to adjust that. And then also disabling private chat for students. That's been a huge ask across the board through education, and the disabling of private channel creation for students as well. All right, we've gone over some of those great features for our admins, right? Switching to distant learning can present a new set of challenges in the classroom. And so we want to talk a little bit about what you can do as educators to help with that. And I'm going to hand this over to Margie to take it away.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you for showing us how easy it is to use the IT admin dashboard. And I'm excited to show you how much it's going to be as easy to do this on the educator side as well. And I couldn't help but notice while you were talking how much activity we have in the chat right now. So it's great to see all the engagement. But today we're going to cover 4 areas, making sure Teams is up to date and how important that is, how scheduling class meetings ahead of time and using safe controls can make sure you have the right permissions set up ahead of time, and being able to create safe channels. So for the teams you already have set up and how students are engaging. And then choosing some apps to bring into Teams so that way you can focus learning into one space so students don't have to leave Teams and navigate away, where they can keep that focus right in Teams. And one thing I like to think about when we go into this today too is how safety and security within technology is a great learning moment. If, for example, a student was running in the hallway, you wouldn't take the hallway away just because the student was running in it. You would teach the students the importance of walking in a hallway for safety. So same thing with technology is we want to teach our students safety practices, but we do want to kind of put some barriers in place, right, so that they're maybe not running in the hallway, so to speak, but we can also teach them how to be safe while using the hallway. So let's go on to our next slide. And what we'll see here is more of a visual about making sure Teams is up to date. So whether you're on desktop, web, or mobile, it's really important to have your Teams application up to date. The nice thing about desktop and web is it's always going to be up to date. And mobile may be slightly different in the sense of how you have your phone set up, or a student has their phone set up, but it's a matter of just making sure your app store updates are downloaded or turning on automatic updates. And maybe in some extreme cases, depending on how updates are run on the phone, you may have to completely uninstall and reinstall the application on a mobile device to get those latest updates. But really making sure your Teams client is up to date, make sure you have the best security features at your fingertips. With that, though, we'll go to our next slide. And what I love about this now as we move into talking about setting up those class meetings, those virtual classes, whether you're in hybrid or remote, how do you make sure that the things students are doing before, during, and after are safe and secure? So if we look at this slide, I think it's a really great visual to represent the controls that you can set up ahead of time before the meeting and class even starts, and then how during the meeting and kind of on the fly you can adjust and control certain settings, like being able to turn on or off chat. So for example, you might have a really important presentation that you're doing and you want your students to focus on you and not get distracted in the chat. So you can actually on the fly turn chat off and then turn it back on once your presentation part is over. And then also making sure that that after portion of the class, making sure all the students are actually out of class, and then doing things like controlling if they can still chat once class is over. So with that, though, I'm actually going to take over from sharing, and I want to demonstrate to you all how this actually all works with the meeting side of things. So for today's example, I'm going to be logged in as a demo teacher named Kara Coleman. So we're in the web version of Teams and Kara's account. So here's Kara's classes and teams. So if I go into one of them, for example, her physical science block, we can see that in her general channel here, she actually has some channel meetings set up. So one of the first things that you can do in controlling is, in this case, this channel meeting. Class is over, so to speak. It is a daily class, but I don't really want my students to keep controlling or adding to that chat. So it's a couple clicks, but if I go into the ... next to this channel meeting and I choose the edit option, and then I choose the format option here, I can actually change it between being able to allow everyone can reply or just moderators. And in this case, moderators means teachers. So if we have other teachers who are part of this class, or the adults, so to speak, I can allow that only us as the moderators can reply. And I can, or turn it back on that anyone can reply, so the students could keep replying even though class is over. So as Ashley was mentioning earlier with the IT structure, this may matter more if you're K-12 versus higher education, but definitely something you can control. So we'll leave this so that moderators can reply, and we'll go ahead and confirm that with a check mark. Now I see the reply button because I am a moderator, but students wouldn't have that option. They would only be able to look at the replies that are actually there from the actual duration of the class, and then not be able to add anything new. So that's what it looks like for a channel class, but let's go into our calendar where I have a class scheduled for tomorrow. So this is sort of a one-off office hours type virtual class. Maybe it's for like a midterm study session or another type of session that you may be offering, right? It could also be a reoccurring normal class, but I went ahead for sake of time and already scheduled it. But if I go ahead and open this up, in the meeting itself, we can see the meeting options button there. When we go ahead and click on that, that's really going to give me a sense of control. So again, this is before the meeting has even started. Nothing has actually happened yet, but I can actually control what settings are in place before we even get into it. So one of the things that's actually going to be evolving here soon is this who can bypass the lobby list. Right now we only have 4 options, but in a few weeks we'll actually see some more options growing here. So one of the options will be the people that I invite, which is different than people in my organization. So organization means anyone in my whole school or district can join this meeting in the sense of bypassing that lobby. So that means a student could forward my class to another student who's not in my class, and that extra student could join in. But the future setting will allow you to say only people I invite, which would be the very specific students you choose, would actually be able to bypass the lobby. Maybe in this case, I don't want my students to be able to start this class before I'm actually ready for class to begin. So I'm going to choose only me, which means if they try to start this class before I am ready, they'll be stuck in a lobby by themselves and they won't really be able to do anything. So this is definitely a good preventative security measure I can take there. You can also notice some other settings. One of the things there is, for example, who can present, You can control that. I may only want to allow myself to present in this meeting. I can also choose this option for attendees to unmute. So I can control this again on the fly in the meeting itself, but maybe once the meeting starts and I start to admit my students in from the lobby, I may not want them to be off of mute and just saying random things until I'm ready for them to maybe come off of mute to ask a question. So I'm going to maybe turn that off ahead of time. This feature actually is the key feature and why we came here, is allowing meeting chat. Right now it's enabled. So that means the students, even though class hasn't started yet, they may not be able to join the class, but this means that they could still chat with each other in that class thread. And so I'm not ready for them to do that. So I could actually set it to in meeting only, or I could completely disable it. If I choose in meeting only, I can also do this on the fly. As I was mentioning on one of the slides, if I'm in the middle of presenting something and I want to disable chat, I can actually in the meeting change that as well. But I'm going to set it for right now that they can only chat in meeting right now. And you can go through any other settings you want. We'll go ahead and save that. So this nice part is I'm able to set things up before class has even started. We go back into the meeting itself once I actually join and drop into that meeting. Now I'm in the online version, so things are going to be slightly modified here, but once I'm actually in class or running the session, I'll be able to go into this ... in my menu bar on the desktop version. In the upper right side, you'll see your menu ... there, and go into more options, which will bring up this menu in a different format. It will show up on your screen here, and you'll be able to control and modify the settings on the fly. So you can change how the lobby works or muting in the moment as well. So for that, we'll just go ahead and hang up and we'll move on from there. Let's actually go back to our physical science team now where we started and look at some things we can do to the team itself. So in this case, our team is made up of several channels. Maybe, for example, in my units channel, this is a place where I, the educator, am going to post things that the students will need to access. I don't really want them to add new conversation posts or be able to reply. I know it's a little empty here right now, but that's more about this being a pretend class, so there's not a lot going on here. But even in the case of nothing here, I still want to control that I'm the only person that really can contribute. So next to each channel itself, there's a ... When we go into those ... we can look at managing the channel. When we choose to manage the channel, there's some things we can function here, excuse me. So one of the things is channel moderation. Actually, by default, it's off. So if it's off, that means any student or anyone who's part of this team can reply to a post. They can add new comments and posts as well. And again, I don't want that. I want to be the one in control of that. So I'm going to turn channel moderation on, which only means team owners, in this case, the teachers, can make those new posts and reply. I can also go through and look at some other sub functions of this setting, but now this means this channel for units is really only controlled by me. Now that's for one channel, but we can also take a higher view level of the whole team by going into the ... next to the team name. So next to physical science to the right, when we go to those ... and we go into manage team there, there's some other settings we can dive into. So when we look at my student list here, maybe, for example, William, he's being a little squirrely and maybe not making the best judgments in the type of comments that he's making. And I haven't really had a chance to pull him aside maybe and coach him through that or give him the better practice of what I'm expecting out of my students. I can mute him and now he cannot add any replies or posts. He can still, in the sense of being part of the team, he can still get his assignments, he can still absorb things, he just can't add anything. And I can also do that for any other student, or with one click mute all my students simultaneously if they're all maybe making some poor choices in what they're sharing in our team. Further from here, besides just member control, I can go into the settings tab, still in the same menu of team settings, and we can look at some things. So at mentions, if I have, for example, some students who are maybe abusing the at mention, an at mention is a way to get attention in a post. It's sort of like the boy who cried wolf. If you over at mention, people start to or stop paying attention to you. So if someone's just at mentioning just to create a bunch of activity alerts, this is a way to help control that. And then there's the fun stuff menu, just a little bit lower, where you as the educator can control things like the GIFs that are shared and other stickers or other fun memes. So if that's starting to get out of control with your students, that's something you can adjust and make just the way you wanted. So that's our main settings that we want to look at. One thing I do want to point out is part of updated features that are coming out, whether it's kind of in our channel meeting or back to that office hours meeting we had looked at a moment ago. There are some attendance report updates coming out where you will be able to see when students join, when they leave, the duration, so you can really start to keep tabs on that as well. So that will also help with security in the sense of you'll know exactly which students were when and where in each of your classes and give you more insight on that. Before we round it out, the last thing I want to also show you while we're here in our demo area of Teams is the apps, because the apps are a way to bring the tools you're already using right into Teams so you don't have to leave. You heard earlier, Ashley loves Flipgrid, right? So if we're using Flipgrid as part of my physical science class, I want to make sure it's integrated as one of these tabs. And to do that, we want to actually go into our left rail, going into the app icon down there. I always like to filter right to the education word on the left side there, which only will help me focus on those education apps. And there, right there, you'll see Flipgrid. So you can easily add it into Teams. This will help with student focus. It will also help so that they're not having to leave Teams and navigate somewhere else, because you can bring those familiar applications they're already using right into Teams. And we will post a link in the chat on how to access some of these great resources as well. With that, though, I'm going to pass the torch back to you, Ashley, and you can round us out.
Hopefully you guys have gained some new safety tips and resources. I'd love to see you put in the chat one of your most favorite features that you maybe learned, or maybe a new feature to be able to kind of either help keep your students safe, or a tip on just kind of controlling that remote digital environment. We've got some amazing resources here for you and some short links. Feel free to jot these down as they help kind of give you some additional resources on some of the things that we mentioned today. Thank you all so much for your time. We had so much fun with you. We will stay on the chat for just a little bit longer to help answer some of those questions. And I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon. Bye, everyone.